Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Stephen Cain. I help people with peripheral neuropathy get out of pain and back to doing the things that they love doing. One of the ways that I help you do this is by connecting you with the right people, products, and services that can all help you get better. Today, we are extremely lucky to be joined by Lauren Bonjiorno. I've been waiting a long time for this interview, about half a year, so finally glad to get you here. She's a virtual diabetic health coach, entrepreneur, author of Diabetic Health Journal, a type 1 diabetic herself. Lauren coaches and creates resources for people with diabetes all over the world to achieve optimal diabetes management and feel strong and empowered. Lauren continues to be a leading voice in the online community with her 28,000 Instagram followers, is an ambassador to Lululemon, and was recently nominated by Pure Wow as one of the top 100 entrepreneurs to watch for 2019 for her work in the diabetic space. So thank you very much for joining us, Lauren.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited and looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, right on. So let's start off just with your story, how you got involved in the diabetes community.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was 7 years old, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease, and there's currently no cure for it. I grew up with type 1, and it was always something that my parents just always said to me, just take care of it. Test your blood sugars, make sure you're on top of it and have good A1C levels so that you can do the things that you want to do. And for me, I was a competitive soccer player my whole life. I played Division I at UNC Wilmington in college, and that was this like goal that I wanted to achieve. And so for me, it was like, I want to be able to, have the best blood sugars and take care of myself. And it was never something that I wanted to have as my identity. So I always hid it from people and just kept it in the background. So I wasn't going to ask for help in that realm because I'm just a very independent person. I'm like, I got this, I can do it myself. And so the only really support I had growing up was just my endocrinologist, which she was actually incredible. And compared to my clients that come to me now, which we'll get into, and I hear about, their endos and the support that, is really out there for a majority of people, I feel so grateful to have had a supportive team. But even with my supportive team, I struggled a lot with just achieving the control and really just feeling the best I wanted to, and ultimately just wanted to be happy and feel good in my body and confident. I struggled with that a lot. And so how I kind of popped on the scene and kind of why we're here talking today is I eventually, took things into my own hands and got to the point where, I'm just like, I have to figure this out. I can't just be restricting my food all the time. I can't be just worried so much about the blood sugar numbers that I'm not living in the present moment. For me, it was a lot of, I didn't necessarily go off the deep end and have these terrible blood sugar numbers. It was actually the reverse for me, where it was I had such tight control because I was living in such fear of not being perfect or not being able to do the things that I wanted to do that every meal was prepped. I wouldn't eat out. It was like I lost a tremendous amount of weight because of the restriction and the obsession with exercise. And I ended up having I lost my menstrual cycle for 5 years. So that in itself told me that obviously on paper it was not healthy with what I was doing. And so that was kind of what led to me to this search to how do you achieve optimal diabetes health and diabetes management and good blood sugar control with having just a normal, balanced, happy life, right? That was my search the whole time. And so for me, the biggest shift was in college. I went from being this competitive athlete to testing out a yoga class. And I had to take this basic, just, 101 gym class, and you got to pick volleyball or, whatever. And I was like, all right, well, I'm playing soccer all the time. Let me do something relaxing so I can just lay down and stretch. And it was so much more than that. And it introduced me to the concept of mindfulness. And I didn't understand it at the time, but every time I left, I was like, I'm so much happier. I'm so much building this sense of awareness. In hindsight, I can see that now. So yoga completely changed my life. And my philosophies now are based on that as a diabetic health coach. So after college, my pre-law track ended up being a pre-health track. And I decided to go to health coaching school. And, I figured why not work with people with diabetes to help them and to help them with the journey that they're on and achieving this balance and achieving this optimal control in a way that's sustainable, and it's not just like a 3-month fix or a 6-week kind of thing and getting control and then going off the wagon. So I work as a diabetic health coach now virtually. I coach people all around the world to basically have healthy, stable blood sugar numbers, lower their A1C, but also increase their insulin sensitivity for weight loss and have a healthy relationship with food and workouts and know what's best for their body to achieve the results that they need. And then in addition to that, I create a bunch of resources. I'm the creator of the Diabetic Health Journal, which is a 3-month guide, mindfulness approach to blood sugar logging and creating awareness around your patterns so you can make the change and implement the habits you need to feel the best you can.
Interesting. I find it real fascinating how yoga helped you out. It sounds like you were ultra disciplined, maybe too disciplined to the point where it was counterproductive to your health, and then the self-awareness through yoga really helped you out in your own journey. I had something similar myself. I used to did an all-natural bodybuilding show, which is a gym rat, and that was my mindset. That was is all I knew how to do was resist things like lifting weights was just my life. And then I did yoga and I learned how to relax, how to stretch, how to be more not just physically but mentally flexible as well. And I share definitely that path with you. But I'm curious because I'm guessing a lot of people you work with diabetes, perhaps don't have that same ultra disciplined mindset that you have. Maybe not the same exact journey, but could still probably benefit from yoga and some of the disciplines that it offers. So I was curious if you could maybe elaborate a bit more about what aspects of yoga your clients benefit from and how you deliver that message to them.
Absolutely. So, and it's funny, for anybody listening, like if you've never taken a yoga class or if you perceive it as this kind of like woo-woo, like weak kind of this like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym, like if you're that type of mentality, like what you learn from yoga like strengthens you in ways that like you can't even imagine. And this is coming from somebody who my whole life was just like, I want the hard route for like everything. And so what yoga did was it taught me how to slow down. And I think that kind of transitions to my basically 360-degree approach that I take with my clients of like, let's step back, right? Let's see what's working, what feels good and what you're having success with. Let's see what's not working that you've done in the past and see where we can change. So there's an aspect of slowing down so that there's space for reflection. And a note on this, like I think we don't have enough space in our life. We're constantly trying to fill it. And it comes from, it's habitual, one habit transfers to the other. So it can be because we always have a phone. We always need to be stimulated by social media, for example. But just the aspect of like just sitting and like having that space and that time to self-reflect for some people is scary. And for some people is, could be boring or for other people it could be seen as like not productive time. But if you take that space, you're able to see a little bit more kind of like from a wider angle view of like, what's really going on here, and there's space to also self-reflect. So I think there's this aspect of self-reflection that comes out of yoga, because when you're on the mat, like you're holding a pose, let's say for like 5 reps, and you're going to see emotions come up and be like, oh, like I want to get out of this, or this hurt, this not hurts, or this is hard, or I'm uncomfortable, whatever that may be, or other emotions stored up from the day. And it's really about like, that's what you have to do in everyday life. It's like, for instance, if somebody has a problem like with emotional eating, I struggled with that for a while. I was like a big, like when I was stressed, like I needed to eat, and it was often like late at night too. And that would wreck my blood sugars overnight. And I just kept trying to start over and it wasn't working. So for me, it was like recognize and create a sense of awareness around what you're feeling and just watch it and don't react to it and watch it. And it's way easier said than done, because done needs to be a practice and a habit you need to build on. I mean, it's taken me years to build that habit. So I think to answer your question in kind of one summary, how yoga has implemented the practices with my clients is this 60-degree approach of awareness and self-reflection and space.
Beautiful. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Just as a whole, and this is perhaps not just for people with diabetes, but I work with people with neuropathy. Most most common cause of neuropathy is diabetes, but there's plenty of other metabolic related causes. For people that are trying to reach optimal blood sugar management or to just optimize their health as a whole, what do you think are some of the most important keys for someone to do that?
I think the first thing is to understand that progress isn't linear. So oftentimes, a lot of people, when they start, or, I'm going to start tomorrow kind of thing, it's like this idea that there's not going to be any hiccups and we're just going to have a straight, upward trajectory, right?
Uh-huh.
And if you're setting yourself up in your mind for that, the second you quote unquote fall off, or you eat what you were not supposed to, or you just take a week off exercise because work or whatever it is, there's a sense of defeat and a sense of failure, and that's not really motivating for you to get right back up, right? And mentally too is like how you're processing these emotions in your body is not healthy. So I think understanding that progress isn't linear, so that when hiccups come up, it's like, okay, I expected this to happen, it's fine, let's just keep going. So I think that's one thing. And then I think a second thing is to really address the mindset behind why you're doing or not doing the things that you want to be doing. So a lot of times we don't, the medical system or the health system doesn't treat people as individuals. We kind of have like this one idea of what health should look like, of like, this is what you should do for fitness, this is what you should do for health. But they don't necessarily suggest or encourage you to kind of look deeper of like, if you're not achieving what you want to achieve, why? And so I always say, like, look at the thoughts that are driving your feelings that are there for, look at the thoughts are there for driving your feelings, which is therefore driving your actions. So for example, if you have the thought of I'm too unhealthy to start now, right? Then feelings is going to be defeated. But like can't succeed. You have somebody constantly nailing into you need to do this, why haven't you worked out yet? Like you keep 3 days in a row not doing it. That's not going to work for that personality type, right? And for most personalities, we need to understand that thought to feeling to action, kind of link and trigger there. So I think looking at that, and then of course, looking at the holistic approach and not just the food and exercise categories, but your stress levels, your sleep, your relationships in your life, your work environment, all of these things, your spirituality, your connection to yourself or some greater power, whatever it may be, all of these things are just as important as the traditional, self-care methods of exercise and health. Or exercise and nutrition, I should say.
Yeah. If you were to make up a pie chart of exercise, diet, and stress management or other lifestyles, how would you divvy that up, and in terms of how much what accounts for blood sugar, proper blood sugar management?
So from all the type 1s that I've looked at, I didn't necessarily know this answer when I first started, but now I can confidently say that I would say sleep is the biggest piece.
Wow.
And for hormone regulation and for your ability to, I think with food situations, like sugar cravings are big for people,
Mm-hmm.
And also just like your energy levels. I think sleep is like that biggest piece that if you don't have that base, it's like if you try to change anything else, you're going to constantly be hitting resistance.
Right.
So that I always say like 8 hours minimum. Some weeks for females, you can work on 7, like depending on where in your cycle you are. But for most people, you need at least, let's say like 7, 8, even possibly 9 hours, depending on your body type. Mm-hmm. Nothing less. Like I don't compromise sleep for anything. I used to, and I was a wreck. So sleep, I would say. And then the next thing I would probably, and that kind of goes hand in hand with stress management as well. So I would say sleep is like the biggest piece. After that would be stress management. After that would be nutrition, and then the final piece is exercise.
Cool. Interesting. Yeah. We're so used to hearing diet 1, and then exercise 2, and then after that much further down the totem pole. But yeah, very interesting. I've seen a good amount of research as well showing that how important sleep is and these other things too. So yeah, we're a real important message for people to hear. They probably don't get that much. So in terms of making these changes, whether it's improving their sleep habits, their exercise, nutrition, the stress management, whatever it is that they need to work on, in terms of making these changes sustainably, and you already mentioned some of the important aspects to expect that there's going to be a bit of an up and down journey and some other things, but could you elaborate more as to what you feel are some of the most important aspects to probably the biggest challenge that most people have is not starting the journey, but staying consistent with it and making it a permanent lifestyle.
Yeah, so I think that the saying, like when you're younger, your parents say to you like, you can achieve anything you want if you put your mind to it. And I think that completely sets us up for failure in so many ways. And I think what they really should be saying is like, or what we should say to ourselves now is, you can achieve anything you want if you have a systematic approach, you support yourself holistically, and you have someone who's been there already guiding you. Like I think those three pieces are so important. That guidance, that support, and that plan and that accountability. Like all those pieces are so important, and it's not just we get defeated when that willpower runs out, and it'll run out at some point, and that motivation. So if you have in place this systematic approach, and kind of plan, right, of what the next 3 months are going to look like, and after that, then what's going to happen for the next 3 months, and then your habits are going to be built. So then what's going to happen after that, right? Like laying out what to expect, and planning out, in all areas where you need to be to achieve your goals, and then having that support holistically. So what we just talked about before, which is looking at your sleep, looking at how your mindset is, looking at your yin and yang balance. So when are you pushing yourself, and then when do you need to know when your work is high and your sleep is low, how to really nurture yourself and be like, okay, this is like a meditation and yoga and Pilates week, not a like boot camp, let's go run 20 miles week. And so holistically looking at that. And then the last piece is, I think having someone who's already been there guiding you is an important piece. And so for me, like growing up, I always played up in soccer. I always had trainers who maybe, did or guided people where I wanted to go, or, whether that was in, soccer or even school. And then in the health world, like I have naturopaths that like guide me, and I have people that are guiding me to be the healthiest I can be, so then I can serve others. And so I think it's a really important piece to find someone who's already been there that can guide you, so you can lean on them for that guidance, support, and accountability, and that you're not just blindly leading and just saying, hey, I'm going to reach my goals with sheer willpower, because if I put my mind to it, my mom said anything that I want to do, I can achieve. So that's just kind of my take on it, and what I've learned from trial and error with myself and with the clients that I coach. Because I really look at why. So for instance, I have this hospital that asked me to send over a bunch of, with an NDA, like all my client kind of information. And mostly their before and afters in terms of perceived fulfillment in all these areas we're talking about: sleep, sleep, happiness, confidence, self-acceptance, exercise, how they would rate these things, and how fulfilled they feel before and after, and then also their A1C levels, weight, all of those metrics. And they came back to me, and the percentages of in each category of how people improved were like, they couldn't believe it. They were like, this is incredible. And if you really look at what I'm doing is I'm really in between their endo appointments, their endocrinologist appointments, I'm holding their hand, and they're committing to it. They're making space, right, to talk and reflect. They're looking back on the I meet with them every 2 weeks. So the 2 weeks of what worked, what needs to change going forward with nutrition or diet, or what nutrition or exercise or sleep, whatever it may be. And then I'm guiding them with, adding in, okay, here's, try this. We need to try this. Let's trial and error this, and let's do some blood sugar food logging, and try this intermittent fasting on this day instead of this. So there's a bunch of different tweaks, and it really yes, my experience and my expertise and my knowledge in this space, but it's also the fact that they just have somebody that they can check in with and be held accountable with, and someone who can guide them.
So Lauren, what is it going to take to scale this? I mean, if most people with diabetes had that type of guidance, whether it's from you or maybe it's someone that has gone down a path that's more relevant to them in their particular world, but just had that concept that you just discussed. Someone who's been to where they want to be, taking that holistic approach, and all these other behavioral change principles that really facilitate the sustainability. What do you think it's going to take? Because there are many millions of people that would be so much healthier, have a much higher quality of life if they were to follow in this general approach. What do you think is going to take to scale this and have many more Laurens out there, or people out there that are able to help, and other people that are following in this approach?
Yeah, so that's really where the bridge I'm at right now, where it's like, how can I make what I'm doing more available to everybody? Like, it just blows my mind how somebody first diagnosed with diabetes, whether it's type 2 or type 1, like, I get calls, and some of them are just kind of like, oh yeah, like, my doctor told me I have this thing and I have to take this medicine and this shot, and like, beyond that they don't know anything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, we need to start tomorrow. So I think it's so needed. And so what I'm working on, and I haven't really announced this yet, but here we go. Mm-hmm. I'm working on creating a school for diabetic health coaches, so that we can get my system out to everyone who wants to serve in this capacity. Number one. And then two is I'm working with hospitals to do seminars, so that they can have the system of the health coaching, and how to take somebody additional to their endocrinologist, how they can have that extra support. And I really think with those two things, like, I feel like I'd be making such a positive impact. And to only think like, okay, I'm only one person, but if I think of like me touching this hospital or touching this person, then they're going to go out and touch this many people, and I think it might be a ripple effect. But I really do think that it starts with the hospitals and with the doctors, and like yourself, who are also connecting people, and saying, not just telling somebody, hey, you have this and you need to go take care of yourself, and they're like, okay, and then they walk out the door, and they're going to come back to you probably in the same place that they were the year before when they saw you, or 6 months, however long the spaces in between the appointments. And I think it's connecting, and I think it's also a lot of people look up to doctors and look up to hospitals as like the say-all be-all, and if they're not pushing a holistic approach and saying it's just as important to focus on your mental health and your stress and these things in a way that's like concrete, and like, you need to do this. This isn't this is a non-negotiable. People will see it as, this is worth investing my time in, and wow, they're saying this, and then I'm going to listen. Because we have to advocate for ourselves, but it would also be helpful if we had the medical professionals to advocating for us and pushing us in this direction. Not necessarily that they need to help us with, because we know they don't have enough time or resources, not necessarily there, but they don't. So with people or resources that can.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely pulling for that to happen, because, as I mentioned, many millions of people are, as you said, just getting that guidance of, take these pills, take the shot, and that's all we can do. And if so I'm pulling for you. I hope your school takes off. I hope the seminars and just this whole approach really starts to scale, because there are so many people out there that need this message and need it tailored to them in a way that they can really benefit from. And I hope as well the people watching right now are taking what you say to heart, because I know that it's going to help them out. For people that do want to learn more from you, where can they go to get more information from you?
Yeah, so I'm mostly on, well, if you go to my website first, I guess that would be a good home base. So it's www.laurenbonjiorno.com. And then my Instagram is I'm mostly on there. So it's just @Lauren_Bonjiorno. So you can find me on there. But if you watch this, come say hello. Let me know what was your main takeaway from the talk, because I'd be excited to hear.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, links for that in the description for the video as well. So, all right. Well, any final words for the listeners, Lauren?
No, I just think that don't feel like you're alone if you're feeling a little bit lost. I think there's a lot of information at you are out there coming at you a million places, and oftentimes it's just, you're not stuck, knowing you're not stuck where you are, and it's just really listening to what your body needs and finding the support and the guidance to help get you there and figure out individually what your body needs to thrive.
Beautiful. All right, everyone. Well, definitely check her out. We got her links again in the description. Thank you all for watching. And my message for you that I always want to leave you with is that you can get better regardless of whatever is causing you neuropathy. There are things that can help you out. You've not tried them all, so stay relentless. Watch these videos, watch the other ones, subscribe, and continue to educate yourself. And eventually you will figure out something that has you feeling better. So thank you all for watching, everyone. Thanks again, Lauren, for your time. And have a happy, healthy day, everyone.